is set. Not many would have predicted a France-Croatia final, but here we are.
Complementing Mbappe's youth, France have an experienced general in charge. Didier Deschamps could become only the third man in history to win the World Cup as a player and coach.
And I think they have the quality to win this match. I'm not saying Croatia haven't got quality, but I think the stage is set for Kylian Mbappe.
He just plays as though he were playing for fun.
The Croatians have certainly not done it the easy way.
We had the hardest path, and we will be the only team that played 8 games at the World Cup.
And I think that 3-0 demolition of Argentina was what really got people to stand back and say, well, hang on, look at this. I mean, even as early as then, people were already saying this Croatia side could be a team that gets to the final. But then,
from pure joy to stunned silence.
In the highest scoring final at the World Cup since 1958, France beat Croatia 4-2 to win their second title.
Some sports journalists I've spoken to who were here 20 years ago in '98 say they reckon it's a bigger crowd than that.
See you in 4 years with the same team. They're young, they'll still be there.
There's something I always say to them, that I drill into them constantly. Never give in. Never give in.
Rien lâcher. Jamais rien lâcher.
And Jonathan Johnson can take us through France's tremendous World Cup journey. Now, Jonathan, in Didier Deschamps, we have a World Cup winning player, and now he is a World Cup winning coach. Just tell us, how did he get it so right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something now that has been coming together for a number of years. I mean, cast our minds back to when Deschamps was on the verge of losing his job, when France were looking like they weren't going to qualify for the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. Deschamps decided to do away with a lot of the prima donnas, the talented players who hadn't perhaps lived up to their potential at international level, and those who were poisoning the atmosphere within the squad. He started to focus on building a united group, a squad that perhaps didn't tap into all of the potential talent available to him as France coach, but one that would come together and really pull through in big tournaments. And he's been rewarded since. Of course, 2018, it all fell into place in Russia. There were the talented players, but there was also the chemistry as well, the right balance between experience and youth. And I think it took somebody like Deschamps, who'd won it as a player, to know exactly how to do it and replicate that recipe as a coach.
Well, let's have a look at their performance in Russia now. In the group stages, they didn't really, I suppose, set the tournament alight, but things started to click afterwards. I mean, was there a moment where you thought, you know what, this side isn't going to get that far, let alone win the World Cup?
I mean, I think when you look at the way that they started against Australia, it was very, very slow. I think the quality of the football was better against Peru in the second match, but still, it wasn't particularly great, and again against Denmark, they weren't really living up to their potential. So yeah, I think coming towards the end of the group stage, especially when you saw them get drawn against Argentina coming out of the group stage, into the latter stages, it was in the build-up to that Argentina match that I think people knew that it was going to be make or break, and of course, it turned into one of the games of the tournament, and I think that was the defining moment for the remainder of France's World Cup campaign. Yeah, I think that there were a few people who were worried that France wouldn't, wouldn't even get to say the quarters or the semi-finals, let alone all the way to the final itself and win it.
Okay, well, let's have a look at a couple of the individuals, and looking at the youngsters, it's kind of frightening that you've got Kylian Mbappe, who's only 19 years old. He became the second teenager after Pelé to score in the World Cup final, and now he's a World Cup winner. I mean, are we seeing the beginning of a world-class great here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the all of the parallels with the likes of Pelé, the likes of Brazilian Ronaldo, they're all perfectly justified because of the way that Mbappe has handled himself, not only on the pitch but off it. Obviously, is a phenomenal natural talent as well. And I think that he has all the ingredients to go a long way and enjoy a very fruitful career. He was one of a number of young players, as you mentioned, that shone in that that squad. But obviously, I think you know, when you consider his raw talent, yeah, I think he is destined you know, to go on and become one of the greats. He is looking like he's going to go on and become one of the best talents that football has produced in a long, long time. That said, although Mbappe was one of the main protagonists in this French World Cup success, you know, he wasn't alone, and he certainly wasn't the only young member of that France squad who you know, stood up and was counted.
Okay, one to keep an eye on for sure. Thank you very much for joining us, Jonathan, and we'll see you in 2019. The logistics of hosting a World Cup can give organisers several headaches, with one of the big stresses being how to ferry around hundreds of thousands of football fans. Well, Moscow had one advantage, and that's its historic underground network. And as Paul Scott discovered, it's a tourist attraction in its own right, doubling as an artwork and museum.
Red Square at sunset, a famous image of one of the world's great cities. And below the surface lies even more splendour. High ceilings, murals on the walls, and grand chandeliers. The Moscow Metro has come to represent more than just a transport network. First opened in 1935, its intention was to combine aesthetics, technology, and ideology. An opulent display of the success of the Soviet model, and to remind commuters their rubles were being spent wisely. But for 1 month only, this underground time capsule will be carrying fans from all over the world to and from stadiums, fan parks, bars and restaurants. The 20th century Soviet model colliding with 21st century globalization. Millions of people use the Moscow Metro every single day, and that number has risen dramatically during the World Cup. But football fans should fear not, because whatever entertainment is available above ground, there's almost as much available below ground.
In first season, and then I continue play here in Metro, and this is an amazing project. I love play the music. I like play the music, and will be more free.
Competition to play below the streets of Moscow is fierce, with only 28 spots available in more than 200 stations. An annual competition is held to decide who gets the chance to entertain the underground masses.
The first step of the selection process is video applications. Musicians send over their recordings, the best ones get invited for the auditions, and the very best of those make the final cut to take part in the project.
Be it the grand halls of Mayakovskaya or the bronze statues of Revolution Square, the Metro remains a source of both pride and superstition for people living here. Each day, hundreds of thousands rub the nose of this dog for luck. With the tournament now deep into the knockout stages and fans desperate to do anything to help their team, this pooch might be seeing more action than usual. But there'll only be one team whose Russian journey ends with a World Cup trophy at the end of the line.
So in total, 64 matches were played at the World Cup. 32 teams started the tournament with hopes of getting their hands on the trophy, and they gave us some awesome memories along the way. Lance Santos and Paul Scott spent 5 weeks in Russia, lucky for them, and here's some of the highlights of the best moments.
Well, not many people would have seen this coming. Russia have just secured the biggest ever win in the opening game of a World Cup.
Things are heating up in the Spain camp, of course, this week. They're without their manager, Julian Lopetegui, who was sacked for taking the Real Madrid job.
Mexico fans celebrating one of the greatest nights in Mexican footballing history, as you can see here. A 1-0 victory over defending world champions Germany.
Well, from the moment that Sepp Blatter announced the World Cup would be held in Russia, the fans have been loving it, as you can see behind me. We were told it would be a tournament with violence and commotion, but as you can see, it's anything but.
Argentina have used up almost all of their lifelines, and as the heat intensifies in Lionel Messi and the rest of the side, there's a good chance it could all become too much.
How can you not be entertained?
And it was down to Eric Dyer to lash the ball home and send England through to the quarter-finals.
Bye-bye to an old foe.
Germany's bye-bye.
We're gonna be champions! How do you feel that Germany are out of the World Cup?
I feel like Sweden won't care how they got there, but they are in the quarter-finals of the World Cup.
The hosts Russia have defeated the 2010 champions Spain and sent them packing.
So it is Croatia who have booked their place in the World Cup final for the first time in their history.
Well, the rain is hammering down at the Luzhniki Stadium as the World Cup comes to an end. But France are the World Cup champions for the second time in their history. Russia has been a surprise to all football fans around the world in what has been one of the best tournaments in living memory.
And that's it for this special edition of Beyond the Game and our